All right, look, I'm going to say something that's probably going to piss off half the people watching this video, and that is Marathon is not Concord 2.0. Even though Highguard just came out, I don't even think Highguard is Concord 2.0. And before you click off or leave some angry comment about how I'm shilling for Bungie or whatever, just hear me out for 1 second. I'm not saying Marathon is going to be some greatest of all time amazing game. I have no idea if it's actually going to be good. I'm not saying that Bungie is a perfect studio that never makes mistakes. You know, I played through Destiny and Destiny 2. I get it. We saw the art theft fiasco, the alpha playtest. I'm not saying that live service extraction shooters are a safe bet, because they're absolutely not. But the thing is, when I see people calling Marathon or any game Concord 2.0, it actually just bothers me at this point, because I'm not some massive Marathon defender or slop defender or whatever you guys want to say. I think it's just because it's lazy. I think that people just use this as a mask for analysis. And I think when people actually get lazy with criticism, that just leads to worse things. And we miss out on conversations that are actually worth having or make the game better. So in this video, I just want to talk about why Concord actually collapsed the way it did, why there's never going to be another Concord, and what Marathon is actually trying to build. There are very real places and issues where Marathon could absolutely fail and fall. But I think lumping these two games, or any game for that matter, with Concord doesn't really help anyone understand anything. There's no hopium, no copium, no doomerism. Just, I want to take an honest look at what's actually going on here, because the internet has turned into using Concord as almost a slur. And it just feels like with algorithms and echo chambers and bots, all these things set up to just argue on the internet, it gets tiring, exhausting even. It feels like you can't be a fan of anything. And I don't know if these people actually enjoy gaming or if they're just engagement farming accounts. So yeah, if you enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Trying to hit 25,000 subs this year. We can do it with your help. I would greatly appreciate it. Before we get into Marathon and Concord, we need to talk about what actually is going on right now, and that's Highguard. If you somehow missed it, Highguard launched on January 26. It's a free-to-play shooter from Wildlight Entertainment. These are legit developers. You know, Titanfall, Apex Legends. The game was revealed at the Game Awards as a big finale. Jeff himself was hyping it up like it was going to be one of the best releases of 2026. I believe in the first hour of launch, it had almost 100K concurrent players on Steam. That's really good, honestly. Like, that's a solid number. But as of recording this video, it looks like it's down 80%. Steam reviews are mostly negative. You know, Twitter and all those things, it's just a dumpster fire. And I think that this is exactly why everyone is just so exhausted with live service shooters right now. You have a team of veteran developers who have made some of the best shooters in the last, like, 15 years, and their game can't even hold players for a single week. So, of course, when people see Marathon coming, they're thinking, here we go again. But that's the thing, is I don't think Highguard failed because of some live service curse. I don't think it was set up for failure by Jeff, because honestly, that was probably the greatest thing that could happen for them. They were going to shadow launch it. I think that explains a lot of the marketing and stuff. It's just how it was hyped up at the Game Awards, I think, was really detrimental to this game. But I also think that it failed because the gameplay loop gets boring and progression feels terrible. It's super unoptimized. There are a ton of issues. And those are specific fixable problems that games have. But in this day and age, you get one shot at having a good first impression. And that's the whole point I'm trying to make here. So look, I get it. The internet has just a whole list of dead live service shooters at this point. We don't have to go through the list because we are beating that dead Highguard horse too much. So when Bungie announced Marathon, everybody was hyped, but as time has gone on and all the issues that studio has faced, reaction has gotten pretty predictable. You know, dead on arrival, Concord 2.0, and I don't blame people for being cynical. You and I have been burned over and over and over and over again. The industry has spent years teaching us not to trust these type of announcement. But I'm going to push back a little. Just because a bunch of live service shooters have failed doesn't mean they all failed for the same reasons. If you actually break down why Concord died or why Highguard is bleeding players and what Marathon is trying to do, they're all completely different situations. That doesn't mean Marathon is going to be good. I have no idea if it will be. I want it to be. I want it to be fun. I think we need more fun, good games in the industry, more competition for other developers to make their games better. But sitting here and calling it Concord 2.0 is lazy. It's not analysis, it's just screaming the same thing that 45,000 other people on Twitter scream. So instead of doing that, let's actually dive into it. All right, let's talk about Concord. And I want to be super clear here because there's a ton, and I mean a ton, of misinformation about why this game, quote unquote, died. Concord didn't fail because it has hero characters. Overwatch has hero characters. Valorant has heroes. They're fine. It didn't fail because it was PvP, because most multiplayer games are PvP or have PvP attached. It didn't fail because Sony published it, or just because gamers are toxic, or any of those other reasons. I think Concord failed because nobody around that game asked a simple question and could answer, why does this exist? You think about the trailers and the gameplay footage, the reviews, what were people saying? It wasn't just, I hate this, it was comparisons. This is just Overwatch, but slower. Concord walked into the most crowded space in gaming, hero shooters, with nothing that made it different. No new mechanics, no unique art style, no gameplay hook that you couldn't get somewhere else. And to me, the characters were fine. They weren't bad, they weren't great, they're just forgettable. Nobody looked at them and thought, oh, I need to play that character. The maps looked professional, but forgettable. Gameplay-wise, the abilities worked, but they were just copy and pasted from other games. And then they charged $40 for it. $40 when all these other games are free to play. Overwatch, Apex, Valorant. But even then, the price wasn't the main issue. I think this is kind of what Highguard is suffering with. It's the main issue of Concord didn't know what it wanted to be. It looked at all these other games and said, let's do what they're doing. Let's put it all together. And that's not how you succeed. That's how you show up late to a party and nobody wants to talk to you. They already have their friend groups, their cliques. You need to do something either completely new or do something similar but way better. And Concord did none of those. It was chasing an audience instead of building one, trying to be everything to everyone, which means nothing to anyone. The only thing that killed Concord was Concord. And looking at Marathon, it's not the same as Concord. It's not a hero shooter. It's not trying to be that type of game, even though there are hero abilities. The games are completely different. And segueing into Marathon and how it is a different game from Concord, it's not asking you, do you like heroes with abilities? Marathon is asking you if you like tension, if you like your heart racing while you try to get out alive and extract. And those are totally different questions. You know, a Marathon, you're dropping into a map, you have some gear, you're looking for better loot, you fight other players, maybe some AI, and then you try to extract and get everything that you found. You know, in Marathon, you're dropping into a map with some gear, you're looking for better gear, you might fight other players or maybe some AI enemies, and then you try to extract with all the stuff that you found. And if you die, you lose all your stuff. It's completely different than Concord or Overwatch or any of those other games where you respawn in like 10 seconds. You know, it's whatever, you're already back in the fight. In Marathon, you know, that gun that you've been building up for multiple runs and then you die, that gun is gone. And I think that that creates real tension. And I think that the group of people that are looking to play Marathon are not the same people who are looking for what hero shooter people want. I look at Marathon and I've talked about balancing and stuff like that, but the game doesn't need perfect balance because imbalances create opportunities. You know, there's no esport attached to Marathon. There's no 3-lane maps or symmetric map design. This genre and this game are built on moments, built on stories that players can tell to each other. You know, I went in with nothing and I came out with everything. I got jumped by 3 people, lost everything. I'm mad. I'm waiting for the extract. I have no shields or no health. I barely made it out. These high stakes, high tension, high reward moments, and Concord never had any of that. Marathon runs feel like you're gambling, while Concord feels like you're, I don't know, going to one of those penny smasher things at a state park. Now look, extraction shooters have been niche. Yes, there's Arc Raiders, I completely understand, but there are so many games that have tried and died. The genre itself is just hard to crack, but I do think that there's actual demand for it. You know, Tarkov has been making money for years despite being a janky mess and hard to access. Hunt Showdown has kept players around despite it being kind of weird. There is an audience out there. They want the experience, they want the tension and the loss and the stakes. You know, it's just the next evolution of like a battle royale player. Whereas Concord was like, you guys want another hero shooter? We got a TV show coming out too. And this is when everybody already had 3 hero shooters they were already playing. Totally different games, totally different genres, totally different players. And that's one of the reasons why these comparisons just don't work out. It's apples and oranges. Yes, they're both fruits, but they're not the same. Let's talk about Bungie for a second. And I know that they've made mistakes, a lot of them. I think Destiny 2 is a, case study into how to frustrate your player base, but still lasting for over a decade. But I think Bungie is legitimately elite when it comes to a couple things. One is making gunplay and guns feel incredible, and the second is their marketing team, because golly, they know what they're doing. If you played Halo or Destiny, you know what I'm talking about. The gunplay is so good in those games. You know, even when the content is lacking, the story is boring, and you're just grinding the same thing over and over again for the 1000th time, the guns feel good. And I think for Marathon, that's going to matter so much. The core gameplay loop of an extraction shooter is shooting, looting, moving, fighting over and over and over again. And if the shooting doesn't feel good, I think that people are going to quit immediately. Whereas something with like Concord needed you to fall in love with the characters and their personalities, the voice lines. Marathon, on the other hand, needs you to fall in love with how it feels to land shots or slide around corners, manage your inventory. You know, I look back at what Bungie has done in the past. Halo changed console shooters. You know, Marathon is going to be one of the first big extraction shooters on console. The feel of Halo's combat was so good that it just influenced the entire industry. Look at Destiny, and it's kept millions of people playing for over a decade despite some genuinely terrible content drops. And I do think that the gameplay, the sandbox, the gunplay had a lot to do with that. And to add on to that, Bungie has been running a live service game, again, for 10 years. They've built loot systems, perks, builds, seasonal content, battle passes. They've done everything, and they've screwed up while learning this, sunsetting weapons and vaulting content. Those were, big mistakes in my opinion. Some seasons were just genuinely awful. But when you're running a live service game and you have millions of players, you're learning really fast what works and what doesn't. And Bungie has that experience now. They've made mistakes. They know where landmines are. They know what people are going to get frustrated with. And hopefully, I know the Destiny 2 portal thing was talked about in like 2015 or something like that. And they knew it wouldn't work, and now we're in 2026 and they did it anyways. But I wanna believe that the people working on Marathon know. Concord Studio was making their first game, their first live service game, their first competitive shooter. It felt like they were destined to fail. That's a huge disadvantage. But again, Bungie has years of data. They know what makes players stick around, what makes them leave, what they'll grind for, what they pay for. But again, does this guarantee Marathon is going to be good? No. Bungie could absolutely mess up. The foundation is different. They're not figuring out for the first time what players want or what players don't want, and I think that changes the odds. But again, anything can happen. Another thing that I want to talk about is I keep seeing this misunderstanding, and that's people think Marathon is Bungie trying to just replace Destiny. I really don't think that's true. I think that there's going to be players who play Marathon as well, who come from Destiny, but I'm not entirely sure that they're just trying to move the entire Destiny player base over. I don't think Marathon is just trying to be the next big thing. I think internally they have numbers and goals they want to hit, and it's not as big as people think it is. They know that this is a different game made for different people. Concord, on the other hand, was trying to be massive. It was trying to be the next big thing. It was trying to be bigger than Overwatch. It wanted to be a cultural phenomenon. That requires appealing to the widest possible audience, and Marathon, in my opinion, is not doing that. It legitimately feels like they're targeting PvP players who want high stakes, people who like deep mechanical skill expression. I think they're narrowing the player base, and that's good. Because what's the famous quote? When you try to make a game for everyone, you make a game for no one, and that was Concord. But if you make a game for a specific audience, you can actually give them what they want, and that's what Marathon could do. So I totally understand why people are calling Marathon Concord 2.0. People are exhausted, they're tired of being sold dreams about live service games and then they crash and burn. Tired of trailers promising all these amazing experiences that are just mediocre. Tired of studios asking for time and money and have vague roadmaps that just never happen. Tired of games launching broken with the excuse of it's live service, we'll fix it later. And really tired of publishers chasing quote-unquote trends instead of making things they actually believe in. So when these big live service games get announced, the reaction is immediate. It's defensive. I've seen this before. I know it fails. I'm not falling for it, and I get it. It's a normal reaction after being burned so many times. But again, that's just pattern recognition. It's not analysis. And then these people go on social media and see these other accounts saying the same thing. They feel validated instead of actually trying games for themselves. And to me, that's just silly. Saying Marathon will fail because Concord fail is like saying a new restaurant is gonna fail because other restaurants have failed. It happens all the time, but the good ones don't fail for the same reasons bad ones do. You see what I'm trying to say? Marathon can definitely fail. I'm not saying it won't, but if it does, it will be for specific reasons, not because it is just Concord, because they are not the same. Now let's actually get into the reasons why Marathon could actually fail. And I think that there's a couple reasons. One, new players will just quit immediately. I think extraction games, especially like Marathon, as opposed to Arc Raiders, are brutal to learn. Now look at Tarkov. It's one of the most hostile new player experiences in gaming. You jump in, you don't know what you're doing, you die, you lose everything, you feel awful, and people quit. But those who stick through Tarkov push through that pain where most don't, and they end up loving it. I think if Bungie screws up the tutorial or the early game experience, people are going to leave fast, and I don't think that they're actually going to come back. And that's hard because extraction games are inherently complex. You need to learn maps, extraction points, loot system, economy, combat, inventory management, when to fight, when to run. Proximity chat adds in a whole different layer. It's a lot, and it's all going to be taught to you, hopefully, without it feeling like a boring tutorial. That's something I look at with Destiny. They've struggled with that for years. New players have had no idea where to start in that game. If Marathon has the same problem with higher stakes, then yeah, I can see it dying off pretty quick. The next thing I think is content updates, and live service games need constant new content, always, all the time. New season starts 2 weeks later, people are like, when's the next season? For extraction shooters, man, that means new maps, new weapons, new gear, new objectives, new events, something to keep the loop fresh. And if content updates are boring or slow, players are gonna leave. I look at Destiny and Bungie has been inconsistent. Some seasons are great. Some seasons are, I'm not going to play any of this. I'm going to go play something else for however long the season lasts. And I think that Marathon can't actually have that boom or bust cycle. If you're running the same maps with the same loot for multiple months, people are going to get bored. Next up is something I think is really important, and that is cheating. And like, Marathon could be perfect in all other aspects, but man, if the cheating gets out of control, people are gone. I think in an extraction shooter, if you get aimbotted or whatever by somebody and they take your gear that you've spent hours and hours, getting gear that you actually care about, that's not just annoying. That's like, I'm gonna leave and not play this ever again. And that's, there's more than just cheating. I mean, map glitches, duplication glitches that can destroy the economy. Other games have been fighting cheaters for years. I know BattleEye is the cheating service anti-cheat that they're going to use for Marathon. As somebody who's played Halo, we'll see about that. But if Marathon launches and cheating is just running rampant, then the game's done. People will absolutely not stick around. The next thing for me is probably not something that a lot of people have on like their "this is why Marathon will fail" list. But I think if monetization in this game feels super predatory, that's just another log on the fire for people to be like, Bungie hates you or whatever. Marathon needs to make money, obviously, and it's going to be a paid game, $40, and I'm interested to see how they're actually going to make money. I assume it's going to be like cosmetics and stuff for like gun skins, and we've seen leaked armor for the different classes. There's going to be battle passes and stuff like that. So I don't know. If there's like pay to win weapon skins or something, man, they have to nip that in the bud fast. Marathon needs a model of monetization that feels fair and can still make enough money to fund the development of the game. And that's hard. So looking back at all this, ask yourself the actual question. Is Marathon Concord 2.0? No, that's not the question you should be asking. The real question that I want you to take away from all of this, which you might say yes to, you might say no to, depending on how you view Bungie, and that is, can they execute? That's it. Can they make shooting feel incredible? Probably. They've done it before. Can they build satisfying progression? Maybe. There's a mixed track record there. Can they make new players feel welcome? Can they stop cheaters? Can they keep content flowing consistently? That's a coin flip. Like, those are questions you should actually be asking. Specific question, not vibe checks or anything like that. And I think that if Bungie nails most of those questions, Marathon does have a shot. If they don't, it fails. Simple as that. But either way, the outcome will be about Bungie's execution, not the Concord curse or whatever. So I get it. I get why people say Marathon is 2.0, because it's an easy take, because it gets you likes and comments and all of that stuff. And I'm sure that there are going to be viewers of my channel who completely disagree with this video, and that's fine. I understand the exhaustion. We just watched Highguard lose its players and stuff like that. I think the skepticism for a lot of new games is earned. But comparing Marathon to Concord, or any game to Concord, just because they're live service shooters or whatever, it doesn't really help anyone in any scenario. And I don't think that Sony will ever, or any company will ever, do what they did with Concord, because I think it was actually worse. I think they should have just made the game free to play. They should have refunded everyone, given it a year to see what would happen, and then go from there. But because they jumped the gun so fast and there was so much money, and it was a silly goose mistake, in my opinion. But what should you do? Be skeptical. Don't pre-order. Don't trust the marketing. Actually play in the free-to-play weekend. Judge Marathon on what it actually is and what problems it actually faces, not on some completely different game that failed to do so. Judge it on whether the shooting feels good, whether the onboarding works, whether content updates are good, whether anti-cheat holds up, whether the economy is rewarding. Judge it on execution. Like I said before, I have no idea if Marathon will be good. I haven't gotten to play any of the playtests, but I do know that I am so tired of hearing about Concord. Like, even Highguard is not Concord 2.0 to me. Completely different games, completely different scenarios. So, thanks for watching. I know this was a long video, but I really think that stuff like this matters. Like I said, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, hype the video. I don't even know what that does, but hype it up if you want. And if you think I'm completely wrong about all of this, tell me in the comments. I read all of them. Just please be respectful, be cool about it. I'll probably respond to you. Don't attack each other, all that cool stuff. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace.